Have you ever noticed that the more you chase someone's attention, the more distant they seem to become? It's as if needing to be missed somehow makes us easier to forget. But what if I told you the exact opposite is also true? That when you stop trying to be missed, when you stop seeking constant reassurance, you don't disappear, you stand out. What if the key to making someone think of you, really miss you, isn't found in strategy, silence, or social tricks, but in a deeper, quieter kind of power? Imagine living in a world where your happiness isn't tethered to someone else's affection, where a missed call doesn't ruin your day, where that thinking of you message no longer defines your emotional stability. That world isn't a distant fantasy or the wisdom of long-forgotten philosophers. It's real, it's available, and it begins with a powerful ancient practice, Stoicism. This timeless philosophy, born in the chaos of ancient empires and refined through the words of Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca, teaches us something revolutionary: that our peace, our joy, and our sense of self-worth do not have to be dictated by the behavior of others, and yes, even in matters of the heart. So what does this have to do with wanting someone to miss you? A lot more than you might think. In love and relationships, we're often conditioned to crave signs of affection, longing glances, late-night texts, the reassurance that someone is thinking about us. We're taught that these external gestures are proof of our value, our desirability, but the Stoics challenge that idea head-on. Instead of obsessing over how others feel about us, Stoicism encourages us to turn inward, to focus on self-mastery, emotional independence, and genuine presence. And when we live this way, rooted in our values, calm in our solitude, and deeply engaged in the now, we radiate something rare. We stop seeking attention and start commanding it. Ironically, the moment we stop trying to be missed is when we start becoming unforgettable. In today's video, we'll dive deep into how Stoic principles not only elevate your sense of peace and purpose, but also transform your relationships in unexpected, magnetic ways. This isn't about playing games or manipulating silence. It's about becoming the kind of person who is naturally missed, because your presence isn't desperate, it's rooted. So stay with me. Every part of this video has been carefully crafted to guide you toward a fuller, freer, more stoic way of loving and living. And if this message resonates with you, the most powerful thing you can do is simply click that subscribe button. It's a small act of support that helps us continue this journey together. Now let's begin. First, the freedom in letting go, releasing control to reclaim peace. There's a quiet kind of suffering that runs through many of our lives, so common we barely notice it. It's the constant tension, the background anxiety, the subtle weight of trying to make everything go our way. The Stoics, in their timeless wisdom, saw this clearly. Long before modern psychology or self-help books, they understood a simple yet radical truth. Much of our frustration, anxiety, and even despair doesn't come from life itself. It comes from our desperate need to control what we were never meant to. We exhaust ourselves trying to bend circumstances to our will. We worry over outcomes. We try to manage other people's opinions, emotions, behaviors, as if our happiness depends on their cooperation. And all too often we learn the hard way. It doesn't work, but this realization isn't meant to break us. It's meant to free us. Stoicism doesn't tell us to become passive or indifferent. On the contrary, it asks us to become laser-focused, on what truly belongs to us, our inner world, our thoughts, our choices, our responses. That's where our real power lives. Instead of wasting energy trying to command the unpredictable, the Stoic path invites us to pour our energy into mastering what we can influence. Patience, understanding, resilience, presence. 2. Let go of control in the Stoic sense is not to give up, it is to wake up, to begin seeing clearly the difference between effort and outcome, to understand that while we may strive with full intention and integrity, the final result often rests beyond our reach. But here's the shift. That doesn't make our effort meaningless. It makes it more meaningful, because when we act in alignment with our values, without attaching our identity or happiness to how things turn out, we become grounded. We engage more fully, not less. We live more freely, not more carelessly. This is the art of non-attachment, not from life, but from the illusion that we can control it all. It's a perspective that transforms not just our inner state, but our relationships, our goals, our daily experience. We begin to see every moment as a teacher, every outcome, wanted or not, as an opportunity to grow in wisdom and grace. Letting go of the desire for control means stepping into life with open hands instead of clenched fists. It means becoming adaptable, resilient, and calm in the face of change. It means saying, I'll give my best, but I won't tie my self-worth to what happens next. That's not weakness, that's power. That's not loss. That's liberation. As we integrate this Stoic principle into our lives, something extraordinary happens. Our stress begins to soften, our relationships deepen, our appreciation for the present moment expands. We begin to understand that the real key to happiness was never control. It was balance, acceptance, and an unshakable harmony within. Letting go, then, isn't about surrendering your strength. It's about reclaiming it in its most potent and enduring form. This is the Stoic journey, from obsession with control to the calm, clear-eyed confidence of someone who no longer needs it. Second, build yourself. Forget the audience. The Stoic path to lasting fulfillment in our search for happiness and meaning. It's all too easy to fall into a subtle but dangerous trap, seeking validation from others. We check our worth through their eyes. We measure our significance by their reactions. A compliment lifts us. Silence makes us doubt. A reply feels like oxygen. Indifference like abandonment. And nowhere does this show up more vividly than in relationships, where affection can feel like currency and attention a drug. But what if your happiness didn't need their affirmation? What if your confidence didn't rise and fall with someone else's feelings? What if being missed was no longer the goal, but merely a side effect of a life deeply lived? That's where Stoicism changes everything. It teaches us to draw a clean line between what we control and what we don't. Our thoughts, our choices, our actions. These are ours. Everything else, the feelings, the attention, even the love of others, is outside our command. To tie our self-worth to those things is to hand over the keys to our peace. When you rely on being desired, you become fragile, reactive to every fluctuation of someone else's attention. It's like riding an emotional roller coaster you can't get off. But Stoicism offers us another way. It invites us to step off that ride entirely by building a life rooted in virtue, not validation. Through the cultivation of wisdom, courage, justice, and moderation, we shape a character that finds joy not in being seen, but in becoming whole. This doesn't mean we isolate ourselves or stop caring. Far from it. Stoicism is not about emotional detachment. It's about emotional resilience. It encourages us to build relationships grounded in mutual respect, not dependency, in genuine connection, not silent desperation. And here's the irony. The more you focus on your own growth, the more you become fulfilled, self-possessed, and purpose-driven, the more others feel your absence when you're gone, because people are drawn to those who are fully alive, to those who are pursuing something deeper, to those who don't need to be missed, because they are already complete. So instead of obsessing over whether you're being remembered or longed for, redirect that energy inward. Learn something new. Follow a curiosity. Take a step closer to your potential. Do it not to impress, but to align with your truest self. Self-improvement is more than a productivity trend. It's a spiritual act, a declaration of self-respect. And when you walk this path, not to prove your worth, but to discover it, you become magnetic. You become someone worth missing, not because you tried to be, but because you stopped needing to be. Remember, the Stoic aim is not to suppress desire or cut off connection. It's to place your happiness in the one place it can thrive securely, within yourself. So choose growth, choose depth, choose the quiet, consistent practice of becoming better, not for them, but for you. Because that's where joy lives. That's where freedom begins. Third, loving without losing yourself. Stoic strength in relationships. There's a kind of freedom that doesn't come from escaping people, but from not needing them to define your emotional state. At the core of Stoicism lies this empowering truth. We may not control the world around us, but we always control how we respond to it. And in that single idea lies a powerful gateway to emotional freedom. You see, resilience, true emotional resilience, isn't about becoming numb. It's not about shutting down or pretending we don't feel. The Stoics never asked us to bury our emotions. They asked us to understand them, to feel fully, but not to be ruled by feelings. To experience the waves of life, but never let them sink our ship. Emotional independence, in the Stoic sense, means reclaiming your power from anything or anyone you've handed it to. It means no longer letting a text message define your self-worth, no longer allowing someone else's mood to ruin your peace. This doesn't mean withdrawing from love or connection. On the contrary, when we cultivate resilience, we're more capable of real relationships because we're no longer clinging, reacting, or fearing abandonment. We love, but we do not attach our identity to being loved in return. We care, but we do not collapse when someone else's affection wavers. That is the beauty of Stoic independence. It doesn't isolate you. It strengthens you so that when you do connect, it's from a place of calm, not craving. And the Stoics remind us, life is always shifting. People change. Seasons end. The only constant is change itself. But resilience is what allows us to adapt without breaking. It lets us bend with grace without losing our shape. So how do we build this kind of independence? It begins, like all Stoic practice, with self-awareness. We pause and reflect. We ask, is this emotion based on truth or fear? Am I responding to the present or reacting from an old wound? We build habits that ground us: gratitude, stillness, reflection, choosing actions that align with our core values, not our passing moods. And perhaps most importantly, we begin challenging the quiet lies we've internalized, the ones that say, I'm only okay if they stay. I only matter if I'm wanted. The Stoic reply is this: You matter because you are here, because you exist, because you live by virtue, not by validation. And in relationships, this kind of grounded presence is magnetic. You don't need constant reassurance. You don't chase, you glow. You become the lighthouse, not the ship lost at sea. Yes, the journey toward emotional independence is deeply personal, but it is not solitary. We walk it alongside those who've come before us, philosophers, teachers, ordinary souls who learned the hard way what it means to stay anchored in themselves. As we absorb Stoic principles, we find something beautiful. Unfolding, our joy deepens, our boundaries become clearer, and our capacity for genuine love, free from neediness or fear, multiplies. That is the power of Stoicism. And that is the quiet strength of a heart that knows how to love without losing itself. Fourth, leave a signature presence. In a world drowning in noise, where words are cheap and attention flickers like candlelight in a storm, it's not the loudest or most visible who are remembered. It's the ones who arrive with intention. The ones who make you feel something still echoing in the silence after they're gone. To be missed, don't strive to be seen often. Strive to be felt deeply. The Stoics understood that it's not how frequently you show up that matters. It's how fully you do. They taught that true impact lives in the quality of presence, not the quantity of appearances. A single moment of genuine attention, of full-hearted presence, can leave a deeper imprint than 100 superficial encounters. Ask yourself, when you speak, do your words carry soul or just sound? When you're with someone, are you fully there or merely filling space? Be the person whose silence holds more meaning than another's speech, who listens not to reply, but to understand, who notices what others overlook, the tone that shifted, the eyes that looked away, the truth behind what wasn't said, because people don't remember those who try to impress. They remember those who make them feel seen, not for a moment, but in a way that lingers. Presence, when offered authentically, becomes a signature, a quiet, personal imprint on the hearts of others. It cannot be imitated. It doesn't fade easily. And here's the paradox. The more deeply rooted you are in the present, the more your absence will be noticed. Not because you demanded to be missed, but because you gave something so rare, so grounding, so real, that its absence felt like stillness after music. So don't chase attention. Don't scatter yourself thin in 100 shallow places. Instead, choose depth. Be all there wherever you are. Leave behind not just memories, but a resonance. Not just connection, but meaning. That's not how you get missed for a moment. That's how you become unforgettable. Fifth, creating a meaningful life. The Stoic masters, Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, did not leave behind blueprints for fame, fortune, or applause. What they offered was something far more lasting, a call to live a life of depth, a life in harmony with our inner nature and the greater rhythms of the universe. To live meaningfully, the Stoics believed, is not to chase the world's praise, or to measure success by how many trophies line your shelf. It is to measure your life by virtue, by wisdom, and by integrity. It is to ask, not how much have I gained, but who have I become? In a world that tells us to hustle, to rise, to compete, Stoicism reminds us to pause, to reflect, to reconnect with the values that lie beneath the surface of ambition, because a meaningful life in the Stoic view begins with alignment between your actions and your principles, between what you say and how you live, between the life you project and the one you truly inhabit. But finding this alignment isn't automatic. It takes courage. It requires us to turn inward and ask uncomfortable questions. Who am I when no one is watching? What do I stand for when nothing is guaranteed in return? Am I pursuing this goal because it's right or because it looks impressive? These are not easy questions, but they are necessary ones, because meaning doesn't show up in grand gestures alone. It lives in the intentions behind your actions, in the quiet dignity of doing the right thing, even when it's unseen, in the way you treat a stranger, the patience you show your family, the commitment you bring to your work, even on a bad day. Stoicism teaches us that the external world, success, reputation, fortune, is fleeting. It's not wrong to enjoy those things, but to build your identity on them is to build a house on sand. Instead, we're invited to root ourselves in what endures, our character, our choices, our ability to respond to life with grace, even when it's hard. And yes, life will be hard. But the Stoics didn't shy away from pain. They didn't sugarcoat the struggle. They taught us to lean into it, to extract meaning from adversity, to turn every setback into a step forward. You don't have to seek suffering, but when it comes, and it always does, you can choose to grow through it, to allow it to chisel your spirit into something stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. Creating a meaningful life, then, isn't about arriving at some final destination. It's about how you walk your path. It's found in the rhythm of your daily acts, the kindness in your tone, the courage in your decisions, the mindfulness in how you show up again and again. Meaning is made, moment by living intentionally, by slowing down enough to see the beauty in a leaf, in a breath, in a shared glance. By connecting with others, not out of performance, but out of presence. And in this journey, you are not alone. The path to a meaningful life is walked together, shoulder to shoulder, with those who seek the same depth. We learn from one another. We grow in community. We share stories. We pass wisdom on. So let's remember this. A meaningful life isn't built in reaction to what the world demands. It's built by living in response to what your soul knows to be true. Root yourself in virtue, stay aligned with your nature, and walk forward, not chasing meaning but creating it with every step. Final reflection: become a presence that echoes in your absence. You don't have to beg to be remembered. You don't need to perform to be loved. And you were never meant to mold yourself into someone else's expectations just to matter. The Stoics didn't teach us to chase affection. They taught us to become the kind of person whose presence speaks for itself, and whose absence leaves a silence too meaningful to ignore. They reminded us that peace begins when we stop trying to control what was never ours. That real attraction grows not from need, but from self-cultivation. That emotional independence is not coldness, but the warmth of a soul that doesn't cling, but stands firm. They showed us that meaning is not found in applause, but in living with intention, in showing up fully, loving freely, and letting go gracefully. And when you live this way, when you speak with honesty, when you love without attachment, when you walk with depth instead of drama, you don't just leave an impression, you leave a signature, a presence so grounded, so sincere, so rare, that when you're gone, people don't just notice, they feel it. So don't focus on making them miss you. Focus on becoming unforgettable, not because you forced it, but because your presence carried weight, because your silence meant something, because your life, lived with depth, became a quiet echo in their soul. That's the Stoic way. Not to be loud, but to be lasting. Not to seek remembrance, but to live in such a way that being missed becomes inevitable.